KeithKembry granted bail after being charged with money laundering. Father of female prisoner that committed suicide speaks of how she was bullied and half of Malta to receive a government check. All this and more on Lovin Daily. Good evening, Malta and Gozo. Johnathan, Cilia here with Julian, Bonnici. There's been a major development in the island's fight against money laundering. Julian is here with the details.
Yes, some major news happened today. KeithKembry Vella, the wife of former OPM Chief of Staff KeithKembry, has been granted bail after being charged with money laundering offences. Now, KeithKembry Vella was charged earlier today in relation to her directorship of 3 City Design, which is part owned by her husband's Casco Group. So as I just mentioned, she has been granted bail. This means she'll be forced to sign the bail book every day at the Aura police station, 4 times a week, and she's going to have to be home between midnight and 6:30 a.m. every single day. Now, bail was granted against a deposit of €10,000 against a personal guarantee of €40,000. Now, on to the sitting itself. So it was actually quite a tense sitting if you are following our live blog with the defense team, including lawyer Edward Gott, who also represents KeithKembry, repeatedly accusing the police and the lawyer representing the Attorney General's office for abusing their power and dragging his client to court on trumped-up charges. Now, the lawyer Edward Gott kept on pushing for evidence. What is Josette being charged with? What are the issues? How much money has she allegedly laundered? This forced Inspector Liam Bujea from the Financial Crimes Investigations Department to say that the charges were based on suspicious transactions from the company, which amounted to €1.5 million. So the way the transaction worked was it went from Casco Group to 3 City Design and back to Casco Group. Now, the crime itself actually dates back to 2008. Now, conveniently, that's the same year 3 City Design actually opened, you know. For those of you who probably don't know what 3 City Design is all about, it's actually just KeithKembry Vella's and KeithKembry's Loft Design, a really quite famous interior design brand on the island. Now, that company itself has actually been involved in some hot water before these charges, when it was actually involved in the design and style of a really controversial building in Baluta Bay. You know which one is that ugly one that juts right out onto the bay and was with loads of controversy. Now, KeithKembry Vella, you know, a lot of people don't really know, hey, you know, we've only really known KeithKembry right up until this point, all of the reports from Daphne to all the corruption allegations. However, she also has a bit of a murky past herself. Now, she actually heads Temple Concierge, which is still functioning nowadays, which sort of facilitates, you know, the lifestyle of the ultra-rich on the island. Now, it had really entered into controversy because it was actually helping facilitate the sale of passports, something which KeithKembry has only been charged with kickbacks over this year. So make of that what you will. And finally, a really big glaring issue with KeithKembry Vella as well was her links to Central Asphalt Limited. That's a roadworks company owned by her family that made something like about €16 million in contracts and direct orders from the government between 2013 and 2019. Really a lot of developments today. Obviously, we don't actually know that much about the case just yet, but stay tuned in the coming weeks. Lovin Malta will certainly be there live, following the sitting every step of the way.
You know, I can tell you that social media was ablaze with reactions to this arrest and charge today. People messaged us in our inbox as well, kind of, you know, saying things such as, I hope that she gets what she deserves, as well as saying, you know, let's see justice prevail in this. So, as Julian said, we're definitely going to be following this. And if you want to find out a bit more about KeithKembry and her connections to all these businesses in Malta, we've just published a very detailed analysis of who she is and gives a lot of context to this story. So I do recommend that you read it on lovinmalta.com to find out a bit more about this case moving forward. Moving on to the next story, a very shocking insight into the way a suicidal prisoner was treated and possibly pushed to the brink while inside the walls of Cordine prison. So the father of 29-year-old Kim Nicholas Vertu, who unfortunately committed suicide in prison back in June, has spoke out about kind of some incidents that may have led her to take her own life in prison, and it's actually quite shocking. On one occasion, quote, a warden had ordered Kim to wash the corridor. When she finished, she kicked a bucket of water over and ordered her to do it again. When she flipped and threw them up to the ground, it earned her 3 days in isolation. And this was just one story that the father brought out about his daughter's time within prison. Now, he described his own daughter as, a gentle soul, a soft soul, who actually had reached out to him to ask for help for other prisoners while inside. So it goes to show kind of the personality of Kim herself. But the fact that, she was repeatedly bullied and pushed to the brink, and this was just one incident, by the prison wardens, goes to show, if she was already in a questionable mental state, this might have been enough to push her over the edge. And I think personally one of the most shocking events is the fact that prison wardens had actually given her a blanket and a pair of jogging trousers, which she then used to commit suicide itself. So 2 prison wardens have now been charged in relation to this death. But, Julian, this really goes to show kind of what is going on inside Malta's prison, and is this the right way we should be treating our prisoners if we really truly want them to reform?
Yeah, no, a really tragic story, and sort of hearing a father sort of talk about, his daughter's experience in such intense detail, it's really unsettling, especially what he had to go through and what even Kim had to go through herself. Now, as you mentioned, 2 wardens have actually are actually going to be charged in relation to the negligence that led to her death. However, in my opinion, really the microscope really has to fall on the Director Colonel Alex Dully. So while the wardens and sort of these stories of abuse and bullying and isolation tactics, really it falls under his responsibility. Were they doing this under his orders? Why were they allowed to do it under his watch? This is somebody who's always claimed to be, sort of a real strong man in prison, all while it seems that his wardens are treating inmates as that. And just one really short important point I think needs to be mentioned. I know what the story does is really put a spotlight on the prison itself. However, we can't forget why this person was in prison in the first place, right? And I think the discussion really needs to change to sort of shift to whether people who commit offences because of their drug addiction even belong in prison in the first place. Personally, I think it's ridiculous. I don't know why it's still allowed. How somebody in her position was put in prison in the first place is quite frankly ridiculous. Let us know what you think about that in the comments below. On to our next story, just in case you didn't think election season was up and coming. Half of Malta are set to receive a government check. Now, this announcement was made by Prime Minister Robert Abela, and he said around 250,000 people, which is roughly half of Malta's population, will be receiving the government checks in the form of tax refund in the coming days. Now, this was an initiative that was actually done by previous administrations, and it's predicted that it will cost the government about 17 million euro. Quite a lot of money, especially during, a pandemic. Now, he didn't actually say who specifically will be eligible for the tax refund. However, in the past, it's usually gone for people who earn below 60,000 euros. Now, that can range, from anywhere from 60 euro back or up to 120 euro. Now, the Prime Minister's announcement came on the same day that the PN actually revealed some VAT-related proposals. It seems that the Prime Minister put them one up and said, hey, listen, we're going to give you money outright. Now, I don't know what you think about it, John. For me, it's something I find really uncomfortable, especially when we're talking about an election season. Everybody likes a bit of money in their pocket, myself included. But, when it's coming up to an election, questions really have to be asked whether this actually constitutes as treating, which is the practice, of MPs, dishing out, favors or gifts in return for votes. I don't think about it, John.
That's exactly right, Julian. So we've been looking into treating over the last few months after a case in the UK actually landed a politician in court. So in Malta, it's kind of accepted, right? Like a politician will come, he'll give you a bottle of wine, might give you a cake, and this might seem very, very normal, but it is actually potentially illegal. And questions have to be raised. Is the government treating the nation in this case? This is the 4th year in a row that they're doing this, and as Julian rightly pointed out, election season is right around the corner, if not already in it. So is the government breaking some electoral rules by giving out these cash prizes, you could even say? Very fair question, and trust us, we'll be looking into this moving forward. Moving on to another story, a bit of a personal story. Even though Malta has updated its hotel quarantine rules this week after a human interest case kind of brought the craziness of the rules to the fore, Maltese men are still being forced to stay in a hotel for 2 weeks. So if you're not aware of the rule, if you came to Malta from a dark red listed country, you had to stay in a hotel for 2 weeks, that's 14 days, and pay 1,400 euros, 100 euros a day just to stay in this hotel, even if you had your own accommodation, even if you were all alone. Kevin Zamit, a Maltese man who lives in the Philippines, spoke to Lovin Malta about getting fully vaccinated with a Pfizer jab. So this isn't like the Sputnik that isn't recognized by Maltese authorities. This is the Pfizer jab. But because the country of Philippines certificates are not recognized by Malta, he's still being told that he needs to quarantine in a hotel. So this is a man who said, quote, "I live alone in Malta. I am endangering nobody. And even though I am vaccinated, they forced me to accept a hotel quarantine." So I don't know what you make of this rule. Like, I understand kind of the initial idea of rolling it out, but with so much backlash and with, you know, people like the Maltese national football team being exempt from staying in a hotel, having individuals coming from countries like the Philippines having to stay in a hotel, once again raises the question if the health authorities are really doing the right thing here.
No, I think that's hitting the nail right on the head. It seems that there's a lot of inconsistencies, right? They introduce a new measure, the next day there's another loophole. They introduce a new measure, a new loophole. They rectify that, a new loophole, and so on and so on and so on. And at the end of the day, as you said, this guy is vaccinated, right? So really can't see any issues with him actually coming into the country and maybe quarantining for a few days at home and not having to fork out 1,400 euro to stay at a quarantine hotel. The hotels must be loving it. However, one point I really want to stress is, with the government, they're changing all these measures, changing all the restrictions. People are really confused. And now people desperately need the science to understand the decisions that they're making. Remember, now, this is total population, right? 80% of Malta's total population is vaccinated. It's the most in the world, right? And we still have more strict measures than other countries. So please, Chris Fenn, Charmaine Gauci, if you watch the show, thank you. But please, actually let us know, let the science know, and so people won't, lose faith in the government itself. On to our last story. Basically, it's all about, how 500,000 litres of water were used to control that Marsa blaze we all saw on our screens. Now, we found out this information after we spoke to Emmanuel Cilia, who's the head of the Civil Protection Department, and he sort of gave us the ins and outs of what it's like, these firemen, these brave firemen, brave Civil Protection Department officers battling a blaze of that magnitude. So it took about 18 hours, to fully put out. I mean, we also, from the morning till the afternoon, this blaze going, just never stopping. It took a total of 10 fire engines and 35 firefighters to put out the blaze finally. Now, we asked Cilia, what caused the blaze, which was in a Marsa scrapyard, what was behind it. He said, listen, that's not my realm of responsibility. That falls under the magisterial inquiry and the police investigation. So we'll find out in the next few days or months, hopefully. What he did say, however, was that fire like this one was really difficult to battle, right? So in the scrapyard, you've got all these extremely flammable materials, right? From car AC units to seats to belts, it really is a hotbed for a real lot of fire. Naturally, Cilia was full of praise for the brave people on site battling the blaze, in Marsa, which could have, potentially, grown even further, if they didn't really rush to action. Just from the Lovin Malta team, the Lovin Daily team, like, well done out there for these brave men and women, keeping everyone safe.
Absolutely, hats off to all the volunteers, all the officers, everyone that showed up to battle the fire. 18 hours, that's nuts. I can't even imagine doing anything for 18 hours, let alone battling a fire, a blaze that is picking up all these leftover junk and just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So definitely hats off to them. Now, let's be clear, this summer, we've seen a number of fires break out, wildfires mostly in grassy areas with such a dry summer, but seeing this one happen in such an urban area just goes to show how dangerous fires can be. So definitely pay attention. And if you're throwing anything out or doing anything that could be flammable, definitely watch out and make sure the CPD, the Civil Protection Department, are on call. That brings us to the end of today's episode. Both from myself and Julian, have an evening full of lovin'.